I want to begin in a good way just by giving thanks for another day of life. I learned from my abuelita that you begin that way. You give gratitude, and I would find her very early in the morning. Sometimes 4:30 in the morning, and wonder, Grandma, why you get up so early? You got to go to school, you got to go to work. Don't you want to sleep? Ah, cállese, mijo, no tienes nada. And I'd find her early in the morning, right there, in the hallway. We had a little rinconcito in the hallway where she had her candles, the Virgen Guadalupe, and all her sacreds there, and be on that pillow right down there. And at 4:30 in the morning, she began, and she always began with gratitude. And it confused me sometimes because we didn't have very much. We sometimes only had beans, and we're backed up on the bills and everything, and living in Compton. I was living in Compton back then. Drive-by shootings and all kinds of craziness, and my grandma would start, begin to giving thanks. And so I learned that teaching of how you begin by giving thanks. And so I'm very grateful for all of you. I want to just acknowledge all of you and your relatives, your ancestors, who you represent, and some of them you may know, and some are just in your DNA that you don't know. But it's important because we live in a society that wants to strip us away of those things. And we're going to talk about that stripping away. We're going to talk about the stripping away of who we really are, and stripping away of the true essence of who we are in reference, to relationships, specifically in reference to men and male identified folks, in this society. But we also, want to acknowledge where you're at. You acknowledge when you walk in somebody's house. You don't just walk in, and we're, recognizing that we need to acknowledge where we're at, and so I want to acknowledge, the land that you're on. I'm on the Tonga Gabrielino land, and want to acknowledge the relatives there. Living in Compton, I have to acknowledge the people in the barrio, the shot callers, the OGs, the veteranos, the big mamas, the abuelitas, all those people, and and unfortunately in this society, I've been doing this work a long, long time, is, some of the people that are in this field, there's certain people that don't acknowledge unless they acknowledge them in a negative way, unless they acknowledge them in a way, calling them a perpetrator or calling them, something negative. Don't realize they're somebody's father, they're somebody's grandfather, somebody's son, but we put these labels in order to minimize and separate people and diagnose them and isolate them that way. So I want to acknowledge, all the people that you're connected to in your familia, and my familia that way. So if you look at this picture, you may find me in there a lot younger, right? And in 1988, I'd already been doing this work for a number of years. Actually started in 74. So I'm this year completing 50 years of working in communities, right? And went on to become a psychologist. And I'm going to say to you that in going in to study psychology, it really messed me up because it taught me certain ways of this Western society of categorizing and minimizing and, if you will, stereotyping. And so at 24, as a therapist, I had the power to write a letter of recommendation, or to a judge to say, take these kids away from this mom because she's unfit, or because this mom doesn't want to give this kid medication for what they had considered ADHD, which I thought was just a child with a lot of spirit. The mother was unfit, or I could recommend for a father to be deported or to be locked up, and and I was only 24, and I had that power. And in this society, we look at when we see people that are acting out with wounds, many times we want to separate them or lock them up or put them away, and none of that heals people, but that was the Western way. And it really confused me because as a kid, I saw something very, very different in my familia. I saw something very different in our community, that my mom didn't put people away. She would take people in. And it was not uncommon that I would come from school and I would see senoras there with their kids, and my mom, feeding them and helping them and doing massages on them, and basically, doing support, and when I walk in, my mom would say, "Pues say hi to your tia," right? And I've never seen him before in my life. Go play with your cousins. I never seen him before, but she didn't say this is a client or these are, children of the system. No, no, no. those are relatives. You call them relatives. And, if a man was there, usually he was talking to my dad because he needed work or he needed some help. And si había problemas, there was problems between the couple. Then my dad would take the man, and my mom would, and my abuelita would talk to the women and children. And I grew up that way. I grew up that way, that, we help each other, but as going to school, I learned a different way. And it really bothered me that we were not healing the men. We were maybe locking them up, or incarcerating them, or diagnosing them. But for Black and brown men especially, there was not any treatment that really understood the culture, understood the wounds, understood what immigration, migration, what racism, what oppression does to you, any of those things. And we continue to see more. And because I was a bilingual therapist, and healing boys. And let me pass it to Ozzy, just to have him share a little bit about that.
Thank you, Maestro. And as you were sharing around this gathering of men, and how I came to do this work that has now become my career of over 25 years, was really due to a mentor, now ancestor, Bobby Lee Verdugo. And that part of this practice that we speak about, it's about kinship. It's about how do we build connections to reclaim, to serve as healthy role models, to serve as healthy fathers. And so I've had the blessing, I'd say, of sitting in circle with not only my mentor, my maestro Jerry Teo, but many of these men. And in a world where I lacked role models, or at least healthy role models, or not having a true definition of what true manhood was, is many of these men were able to demonstrate that, and how they showed up for each other, and how they spoke about their truths, and how they addressed, this need to heal those things that get in the way of us being nurturing, of us being loving, understanding, patient. And so not only have I been blessed, as many men who have come through this circle, this gathering, but now my children also have participated. And so now, they get to see other role models. They get to see and learn from other men that gather in this way, in a good way, in a healthy way.
Yeah, so we met Ozzy when he was a teenager, a teen father, and looking all hard with his tattoos, and coming from the street. And what we began to understand is that sometimes you got to carry yourself that way just to survive, just to get through another day. And underneath that shield, there was so much goodness, but nobody could see it. Nobody could see it. And my compadre, may rest in peace, Bobby Verdugo, greeting Ozzy with "Mijo, welcome." you know and that sense of seeing not the woundedness, not the inappropriate behavior that the probation officer had written on the referral, but seeing a young man, seeing this young man that had potential, seeing the sacredness through the wounds, was really the beginning of that healing. And that's the work that we do in the National Compadres Network, and what we're going to talk about today. Next slide.
No, I appreciate your comment, Corey. One of the things that Maestro Jerry does really well by highlighting is that not that men want to hurt their relatives, their loved ones, but is that sometimes we carry things that are unresolved, that we haven't done our work to heal yet, and a part of that is racism, oppression, discrimination, being treated as if you're not a part of, right, and or being confronted, and so it's not an excuse by no means, but rather an understanding, right? That sometimes there are things that we hide, that we push away, that we suppress, and somehow they come out in our behavior, in our interactions. And so we have to do our job to begin to unmask, to begin to peel away, but to heal those things, right? Because in the true essence of who we are as men, I believe that all men want to be good men. I want to be good in our relationships. And so we have to reclaim and remind ourselves that we have that within us.